My name is Nadia Rosova-Green, and I'm a medalist. Thank you guys for the patience and keeping up with me through this technical problem. And I'm going to talk to you about the art medal, and I've titled my presentation, What is an Art Medal and an Introduction to Contemporary Medals. In the first part of my presentation, I'll speak a bit about the history of the medals and the techniques in producing medals, the materials that are used. Also, there's the significance of the medal, and in the second part, I will demonstrate and show examples of my work. Now, medals, despite their small size, can have big messages and achieve big goals. Most of the time, when I'm asked what I do for a living, and when I answer, there's silence and a bit of confusion. Usually it would be perceived that those are sports medals that are awarded to sportsmen when they win. And this is also true. Something worn around your neck as a sign of victory over others. But in this presentation, I'll focus on the art medal, what it is and what it means, how it came to be, how it's made, and at the end, I'll show examples of my work. In fact, before I go into more technical details, let me briefly try to answer what is an art medal. I brought here some medals, some examples of my work. Later on, you can see them, and I can pass them around. In fact, now, this is a work called Nike. I did it in 2005. Here are some examples of contemporary Bulgarian medals. So what is an art medal? It's a struck or fabricated object with a certain size, shape, which is easily held in one's hand and represents an idea, a portrait, event, or simply it's an aesthetic object. Medals are usually two-sided, and they have an obverse and reverse side. Some medals have designs only on one side, and they're called uniface. It is a common practice in Europe and rather rare for the United States, where medals are perceived to always have two sides. Medals are an unjustly neglected form of art due to their size, but medals can also, they're the only art form that is encouraged to be touched, so they're tactile. And you can see it's very smooth and it's very soft and nice to the touch. So this is also a very important characteristic of medals. They're also addictive in a way. And also their patina, which is the color, their color and finishing becomes better with time and with touch. These are the medals I will focus on. They're small art objects which each easily fit in. Okay. Medals are, as most metal objects, are resistant to the influences of time and weather. They outlived by centuries their creators and owners. Medals are eternal in that respect, a testimony of the time and culture, just like coins we find now are. I will try to acquaint you with this kind of medal and the way it's created. But first, let me acquaint you with some of the etymology of the word medal. This is a bit more technical, but it's interesting as well. The first time the word medal appeared in English was in 1578, and it's derived from the Middle French médaille, which itself comes from medalia, and ultimately from the post-Latin medalia, meaning a coin worth half a denarius. It was a denomination of a coin. The word medallion, first attested in English in 1658, about 100 years later, has the same ultimate derivation, but at the same time through the Italian medaglione, meaning large medal. So what we call a medallion now, which is a small medal, before it was actually a big, large medal up to 7 centimeters in diameter. Later on, medaglia itself is derived from the adjective medialis, meaning medial or middle. The second being that medalia comes from the vulgar Latin metallia, meaning metal or a coin, and from Latin metallum, which is in the Latinization of the Greek metallon, which means also a mine. So here are examples of some coins. Maybe some of them you'll recognize. I haven't put their name because our focus are not the coins, and their historical value and significance, but more as examples of the images that are portrayed on them. Here are some more examples of cameos. Cameos were gems which were hand-carved for dignitaries. They could be stamps like the one up on the corner, which is carved in a negative, and with wax it could be stamped on different on paper with the person who bears that. And here, on the next slide, you'll see something interesting. These were tokens which were sold in Pompeii, were given to those who wanted to visit a prostitute, for example. So they had a specific image of what activity could be performed. Okay. The first known instance of a medal being awarded comes from the historian Josephus, who, writing long after the event, accounts that in the 4th century before Christ, the high priest Jonathan led the Hebrews in the aid of Alexander the Great, and in return for this, Alexander sent to Jonathan honorary awards as a golden button, which is the custom to give to king's kinsmen. Roman emperors used both military awards of medals and political gifts of medallions that were very large coins, usually in gold and silver, and were die struck. And I will explain the technique of die striking later on. Both these and actual golden coins were often set as pieces of jewelry worn by both sexes. Here on the top row, you can see some examples of medallions. Alexander the Great. Another medallion which was worn around the neck. They're all striking gold. Later on came the time of the bracteate, which is a type of a thin gold medal, usually plain on the reverse, and it's found in Northern Europe from the so-called Dark Ages or migration period. They often have suspension loops and were clearly intended to be worn on a chain as jewelry. These are typical examples. There are not that many surviving examples from that time, but what is characteristic that they were very thin and they were always usually struck. They were not carved like medals. They imitate at a distance Roman imperial coins and medallions, but have the heads of gods, animals, and other designs. The Luthard medallet, produced in 600 AD in Anglo-Saxon England, is an isolated example. This is the first medallion here to the left. It's an isolated example known from a single copy of a Christian medal, featuring an inscription naming Luthard or Saint Lithard, the first priest among the Anglo-Saxons and most likely presented to converts, shown here in the middle. Surviving example is mounted for wearing as jewelry. In Europe, from the Middle Ages on, it became common that sovereigns, nobles, and later intellectuals to commission medals to be given simply as gifts to their political allies to either maintain or gain support of an influential person. The medals were made in a range of metals such as gold, silver, gilt, bronze, lead, and depending on the status of the recipient. They were usually typically up to 7.5 centimeters across and usually featured the head of the donor on the obverse. Obverse is the front side of the medal, and the reverse is the back side. With a learned motto inscribed around the edges. Such medals were not usually intended to be worn, although they might have been set as pendants on a chain. From the 16th century onward, medals were made by rulers for presentation and private enterprise for sale to commemorate specific events, including military battles and victories, and from this grew the practice of award military medals specifically to combatants, though initially only a few of the much higher-ranking officers received them. Like almost all early Renaissance medals, these were cast rather than die struck. With each successive cast, the medal became slightly smaller and the numbers that could be produced were probably not too large. And usually a lead proof was made because lead was not a very expensive metal. The association between medals and the classical revival began to take a rather different form after the exchange of medals became associated with Renaissance humanism. Princes would send humanists, writers, and scholars medals in recognition of their work, and the humanists began to make their own medals, normally in bronze, and sent to their patrons and peers. The fashion remained strictly restricted to Italy until near the end of the 15th century, and then it spread to other countries. By the 16th century, medals were increasingly produced by rulers or cities for propaganda purposes. In 1550, a die stamping machine using steel dies was introduced in Augsburg, Germany, and soon this process became standard. The artist could now cut an intaglio die rather than modeling in relief. By the 16th century, the wearing of smaller medals on a chain was a persistent fashion for both sexes, and a variety of medals were produced commercially for the purpose, commemorating persons or events, or just a non-specific suitable sentiments. Unfortunately, that's not very well, can see very well, but Pisanello, born in 1395 in Pisa, died in 1455, known as Antonio di Puccio Pisano, was one of the most distinguished painters and early Italian Renaissance of the early Renaissance and Quattrocento. Pisanello created splendid frescoes in large murals, elegant portraits, small easel pictures, and many brilliant drawings. He is the most important commemorative portrait medalist in the first half of the 15th century, and it's rightfully considered the father of the art medal. Here's the medal. The top here is actually his self-portrait, and down below is one of his most famous medals of the Byzantine Emperor John VIII Palaeologus, done in 1438, when the emperor went to the Council of Ferrara and visited Ferrara. So this medal was commissioned to be done to commemorate that visit. This specific copy is in the Münz cabinet here in Berlin. If anyone has the interest to go see it, I haven't seen it yet. I have seen some of the other copies, which are in the National Art Gallery in Washington and also the British Museum. And I was able to hold one, which is incredible. Here's some more examples of his work. So basically, he did portraits which, for the first time, were done in relief, and as you can see, incredibly well. Now, here's a brief overview of the materials used for casting of medals. Brass, which is the most common and cheapest type of bronze. It's actually a type of bronze. It's an alloy of copper and zinc. Bronze, of course. Then there's silver and gold, aluminum, pewter, lead, glass, rubber, silicones, and anything else, any new innovative material that could be cast is also used for contemporary medals. Now there's some different types of medals depending on the production technique. There is the three most common ones in terms of casting or sand cast, and I'll explain the processes a little bit. Lost wax casting and die striking. Of course, you can model in clay and not cast the metal at all. You can work in stone, glass fusion, and all kinds of other materials. Here's a little bit of explanation about lost wax casting for those who are not familiar with the process. This is probably one of the oldest, kind of most, how do I say, you obtain the most exact copy of what you've done with lost wax casting, because this is the top left picture is the model which is done in wax, then you invest this model with a cement investment. It's called cement investment. After doing the spruing system, which is the little, you see around the little sprues that go around the model, which is after burning of the wax inside, the metal, which is poured from the top here, goes around in those, you know, you see those little wires over there? This becomes a hole which leads the metal to the core and to the model. Here the third picture is obtaining the plaster model and creating a silicone model, which also, after spritzing of some wax, can take the cavity here, which is formed here, over here. And this way you can create, you know, as many copies of the same object as you want. Here is the casting of the metal through this hole. This is the ready cast, and this is the spruing system, which ensures that all the metal goes evenly into the model. And this later on is removed, worked on, patinated, and this is the ready product. This is not something I've done, so I use it just as an example. Sand casting is probably the oldest. This is the oldest way of casting. Of course, it was not done in cases like this. It was done in the ground. There is a certain design created, and some of the metal was poured into the ground. In sand casting, there is a case. This is contemporary sand casting. There is a case which is filtered with a specific, very fine soil. Then a second type of soil is used. This is the model, which is, if it's in plaster, it's isolated with shellac, so the water doesn't adhere to the plaster. And there is some special, very, very fine soil poured on it, almost like powder, to obtain the good quality of the surface. Then the imprint is taken from both sides of the case, and it's packed well, so the cavity of the model stays inside. And then from here, there is the metal is poured through here, through this cavity in the soil, and takes the size, the shape of the model. If you have any questions, please interrupt me if I'm too.
I was wondering if yourself you have any of these patterns to work with.
Sorry?
Do you yourself
Yeah?
have any of these patterns to work with and create patterns?
Well, I cast. I will talk about this a bit later, but I cast with a foundry. I don't do the casting myself. I'm very familiar with the process because I've observed many times. And I have done casting myself, but I don't have in my studio the possibility to do this. I just use these as examples to clarify a little bit. So die striking, this is when here's die of a verse and reverse of a coin. And basically the die is created in the negative, and it's the images are created in the negative. So when the blank metal is put between the reverse die and the first die, which are these two, and then hammered on top, this is how the coins were created. And they take the images of the reverse and the reverse die. Okay. What are the stages to create a metal? They're probably not too different from painting, this is the process that is very specific to each art form. But basically, when I work, I never sketch anything. I work prima vista, pretty much. I'm used to that, and well, of course, for commissioned work, I do some sketching, but when I do my own work, this only distracts me from the whole process. So basically, you get the idea, you work in the material, which is, for me, it's usually plaster. And then the casting is done, and then you finish the whole medal, and then you clean up and patinate. These are, I'm giving you an example with one of the latest works I've done. It's a medal commissioned by the newest sports and venue, new sports and cultural venue in Russe in Bulgaria. And this is the cast, the plaster model of the medal that I did, which looks so miscolored because it's it has shellac, and this is after casting, so there's some soil still stuck on the model, and this is the ready medal. So here's the patination process. From that you obtain this. This is finishing up. This is in my studio through the process of patination.
So what do you intervene?
Sorry?
Yourself, because it's you there.
Yes.
What do you intervene?
After I get everything from the foundry, then it comes in a very raw gold brass, which has this film on it from foaming and all kinds of other. The sprues have to be removed and everything to be cleaned to get to the original. Unfortunately, I didn't have a picture of the metal, the way it comes from the foundry, but it doesn't look good at all. It looks like a piece of nothing. This is my studio. Now this is a couple. I'm gonna show some of my work. A couple of works I did for the International Congress of FIDEM last year. FIDEM is Fédération Internationale de la Médaille, which is the oldest organization for art medals. It's based in Paris, and every 2 years it holds congresses in different parts of the world. So last year we had this congress in Bulgaria for the first time in 80 years, which was a great honor, since we have a very good studio for medal making, and probably one of the leading ones in the world at the moment. So I was part of the organizational committee. It was held in the Archaeological Museum, which is this beautiful 15th century building in the center of Sofia. These are some more medals. This is Gravity. It's actually a series of 6, which I've shown only 2. It's silver plated. This is a medal called Glass. It was collected by the British Museum in 2004 in the National Art Gallery in Bulgaria. It's very low relief, and here working solely with patina to get the depth of the image. This is work called Constellations. Some non-cast metals. These are fabricated metals. It's a series called Love. Hello. And it's plaster. Different photos and objects. I sometimes like to use a lot of photos for my work. This is a medal which is 2 parts. The rose is removed, and it actually says FIDEM 33 Sofia. It was designed for the FIDEM Congress. This is a work called Roots. It was part of my diploma work, and it's unfortunately we can't see very well, but it's a very interesting patina, very difficult to obtain, because the patina is always, we never know what's going to happen until the end, until you see it. Actually, your work, you may see it in plaster, but until you apply the patina and see how the acid will react with the metal, and sometimes there is a different composition of the metal. It could be more zinc or more copper, so when you apply the different acids, you never know what you're going to get. It's almost like a box of candies, you know. So even if I do this work, I can never repeat this again, even if it's the same exact work. So it always has a different finish to it. These are some works that were part of an exhibition at the City Gallery in Sofia in 2007. Kind of a meditative period for me. This is from an exhibition from last year. It's called Requiem for Love. It also the same principle as the previous ones, plaster and photos. Actually, this photo was a campaign against drugs in Sofia. So, anyway. Requiem for the Toothless Elephant. This is also part of the same exhibition. And kind of try to do the same association with the drugs, but with the elephant, who is lacking his tusks. This is Mountain Haiku. Again, plaster and some paper and found objects. This is part of the arrangement, the way they were arranged on the wall. So you can do different compositions and do also. The picture is not that great, but some more works. Constellations 2 was a later work. This is sketch 22. And here you can see the different patina in the same work, patinated differently, has the different, it feels differently. This is a series of medals called After Midnight. And it was basically portraying expectation and kind of, I always imagine this is like a mother who is waiting for her son to come from war. This is work called In Between. This is an interesting patina work because when you apply patina on the brass and you heat it, you have to heat it at different temperature. And if you heat it too high, the patina burns and becomes black. But in order to keep the middle from burning, that's tricky. Sorry. This is Winter in Mallorca, and it's a work I did in 2010, and last year it was also acquired for the permanent collection of the British Museum. This is a work I did. I was very impressed by Iñárritu's movie Amores Perros, and I saw it in 2003, I believe. So this work also last year went to the Royal Coin Cabinet in Stockholm. This is the largest museum for economics in Europe, and they also have a department only focusing on contemporary medals. This is Sleepless in New York, also an interesting patina work. So medals could be also not only square and round, but they could have different shapes. These fit perfectly in the palm of the hand, so when some friends of mine, mostly male, come to my studio, they like to hold them and walk around with them. So. And they could be composed and arranged in different way. I've done an installation with about 50 of those on a wall at the American residence in Sofia. This is Nike. This is a work I showed around in a different patina. This is a commissioned work. It's St. George. I did it for a friend of mine in the States to give as a gift to her husband, who was George. And this is after she wanted an exact copy of an icon from the village of Arbanasi. This is a very nice icon. So this is the last thing I did right before I came here. This is a work dedicated to this arena. It's the honorary sign for the arena. This is the Bulgarian Prime Minister who receives the sign. The medal was also given to the Romanian Sports Minister, Gabriela Szabo, the Bulgarian Sports Minister, and the Mayor of Russe, who is there on the right. This is some exhibitions that I have done through the years and some upcoming shows that I have. Most closely, I'm doing 2 shows in Japan in December. And this is a really fun part of the work. I did recently a workshop for children, which I hadn't done until now, and it's was part of a Kids Fest, which is an international festival done in different countries. It started in Pristina, and the idea is to do all kinds of volunteer workshops and show kids how different things are done in one day. So I had incredible interest. I had over 70 children go through this workshop in 3 hours, which was really very straining for me, because they were given a plasticine circle of plasticine, which is smooth, and I asked them to design and to draw on it. And then I took the imprint in plaster over there, you can see on the top right corner. So at the time, they leave, in a half hour they could leave with a plaster image of their picture. And they were very disappointed that they thought that they couldn't take the plasticine with them. But then when they saw the plaster, they were like, oh, this is nice. And here, this is a medal I did for the Conservation Society in China. They had a competition for an elephant competition. So I designed this medal for them, and then there's this kid who tried to make a copy of it, which was very sweet. And this was the Congress medal of the Congress last year in Sofia, done by my professor. And these are some of the museums that I mentioned earlier in my speech. And I thank you for your attention. And I hope I didn't go into much detail about things that you are not interested in, but if you have any questions, I'll take them now.
How long does it take you to complete?
To illustrate this, I'll tell you a very funny story. When I was doing my master's, actually I am not a classically trained artist. I started working on medals about 12 years ago. I haven't gone to art school or the academy. I've gone to a classical high school, and then I studied marketing in the States. So, but I've always known this professor who was in Bulgaria and who was very good. And he was a friend of the family, so I grew up with his work in the house. We had several medals. So one day I went to a workshop that he was organizing in the academy, and I did my first medal then. This is how I started making medals. But when I was doing my master's, a year later, he encouraged me to apply to the academy, and I was accepted. When I was doing my master's, the first 6 months, he came to my house. That is actually very frequent practice, that sometimes professor will visit the students to make sure that they're working. But no, he did it as a friend. Because I was stuck on trying to make a series of medals which were such an abstract geometrical forms, I mean, incredibly difficult. And he said, no, this is not good. And I burst into tears. I've been working on this for months. And the next day, actually, after he left, I threw everything in the garbage. It was about 10 works. My sister later on pulled them out. They were almost everything was broken, but the next day I did a work, and when he came to see it, he said, don't touch it, it's ready. I did this work in 10 minutes. And this is the first work, my first work with which I participated in a FIDEM Congress in Lisbon in 2004. And that was the work that was acquired by the British Museum. So you never know. You could work on something for months and it's not going to happen. Or you could work in 10 minutes and then it's done. So like in life, you try something so hard and it's not working, but then sometimes it happens just like that. I can't snap my fingers. So.
I was just looking NRG, and I'm really surprised about your work. And my question is, how your work is related with cultural diplomacy and exchange of culture and so on?
It's actually very related because the medal is a symbol, and as a symbol, it's something that could be given, and it could carry a very important message. It could be a commemorative medal of a historical event. It could be a peace medal. It could be a medal of a specific city, which is given to the guests of the city or the honorary citizens, people coming from all kinds of politicians, artists. You know that every time someone is achieved something or as a recognition, a medal is given, and that is, of course, a sign of merit. So I think it has a lot to do with also with cultural diplomacy, because it is the medal is just it's a how do I say it? It's a carrier of a certain message, and it's a passive. It is what it is. You can just as any art form, because it's given in goodwill. Nobody makes you give something to somebody. And a medal, for example, could be done for this conference. A medal could be done for this institution. It to be given as a gift to people who come and in some way have impressed the commissioner of the medal so much that they want to give it to them. I mean, you know, all kinds of awards are established to give for recognition. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of a material message to be given. So it doesn't matter to whom it's given. So in that respect, it is probably, you know, yeah, very significant. Yeah. Because the medal is actually a gist of an idea. It's the essence of an idea. Just like the stage poster, you know, when you do a poster for a play, you have to take the essence of the book, and you have only limited space to. You can't show everything, but you have to look in an image and say, okay, this is Romeo and Juliet. This is Macbeth, or you know, you need to. This is the task of the artist, and the good one are those who really can take the gist of the essence of the work, of the play. So that in that respect, medals are very similar to stage posters, because medals on one side, they have something that is okay, the main idea, and then something like the consequence. No, interested.
And I think we can follow up with the questions after
Sure.
After we finish it, because we have to keep the program as
Thank you.
Mark mentioned.